for some reasons. Are we going
Yeah,
live? We're live.
yeah, we're live. Yeah, as I was researching, hello, this is Old New Dude with Theories of Temple of Game of Thrones and Beyond with co-host.
Richard York, Asher's trueborn son, looking
There
a
you
little
go.
a little bit less like his Dart this week. Hopefully, I had my hair was looking pretty crazy at the end of the last week.
I don't even talk about it. I was at the hospital yesterday, so I mean, I'm feeling kind of rough. I was having chest pains yesterday, so I didn't end up having to go to the hospital for a couple hours last night. But
Everything okay?
yeah, it's it's fine. That's all I'm
Yeah,
gonna say.
that
Uh,
happens.
yeah, it
Sort
happens.
of
I've
had
been
friends who
eight
rushed to the
years.
hospital.
I had the heart attack 8 years ago, so it's just stuff you got to deal with.
Oh
But
wow.
yeah, it is what it is. I partied hard, put myself up wet. I didn't help out the history of heart disease, but it's all good. I don't generally dwell on it or get down too often, or try not to. But I don't like this chapter just because of how it ends.
Yeah.
As a father of a 14-year-old girl, there's only so far in this chapter I'll actually read.
Yeah. Yeah. I wrote down in my notes. Dany does explicitly say yes for whatever good the verbal consent of a 13-year-old is.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it before. There's not a living person on this planet that their ancestors didn't do this. I mean,
Oh yeah. Oh
it
yeah.
was only a couple of 100 years ago. I mean, 13 was marrying age. So I mean,
Yeah, and
uh,
arranged marriages have been pretty much the norm for human societies, and
yeah,
they're basically like sort of double rape in a sense, right? Because there's no real consent from either party if the marriage was arranged by their parents. In this case, Khal Drogo is definitely in charge,
yeah.
but in general, arranged marriages are sort of forced upon individuals.
Now, what I remember of the scene, they make Khal Drogo seem sympathetic and likable kind of way, but still, I've only read that scene once. I've never read it again. But the rest of the chapter, the beginning of the chapter, still got some good stuff in there. So
Yeah, and I wrote down at the beginning of my notes. I moved it to the beginning once I got to thinking about it. Is we should be on the lookout for King Lear references. So, Dany and Cersei are both being driven paranoid by prophecy, with Cersei echoing Mad King Ares. Dany plays the female lead of King Lear's daughter in this book.
mhm.
So because Robert orders her to be poisoned, right?
Yeah,
Which is what happens with King Lear, and so because he's afraid that the Targaryens are going to come back, which is it's very similar to King Lear, where Dany is King Lear's daughter, but there's references that really imply that Dany is King Lear, right? She's a Shakespearean tragic figure, and she's specifically getting prophecies that are sort of designed to make her become paranoid. So, so we should be looking for signs that might reference King Lear or Dany as some sort of Shakespearean
I'm
figure.
not gonna lie. I don't even know who King Lear is, so that's why I like having.
The
I
only thing I
called
can
him.
remember, I mean, I haven't
Yeah,
looked at that story in 3 decades or something, right? But the only thing I can remember is that I know that it is that, right? That it's and some of this is I did read another one of your hosts, Ileana from Girls Gone Canon's Glass Table Girl Many Faced blog. So the Many Faced blog. I don't think she's written anything since this. So for the past like 3 years, the top thing on the Many Faced blog is the analysis of the Shakespearean references in the first book about Dany. The and she does talk. She does talk about does King Lear really go mad, or does he just kind of snap out of it at the end and so forth.
yeah,
I would think it would sort of imply that Dany is likely to order the assassination of Aegon, and then find out that he really is her closest kin.
mhm.
And it's going to probably be somewhat similar to Rhaenyra ordering that the loyal dragon seeds Adam and Nettles be killed, right? So in the Dance with Dragons, there's and likely to be in the later later seasons of House of the Dragon,
Mm.
Rhaenyra orders that Adam and Nettles be executed. She doesn't trust any of the dragon seeds, right? Because two of them have already betrayed her, and so she's assuming the other two will, because she's paranoid and because she has this witch that's kind of giving her bad advice.
Yeah, I have Fire and Blood. I haven't read it yet, so when House of the Dragon comes on, I haven't talked about House of the Dragon or anything. There's plenty of people out there doing fantastic videos and all.
Yeah,
but I do want to do, even if you can't join, a reaction video to each episode, because I have no idea what's going to happen. I have no idea who these people are.
Yeah,
so I've asked a couple of people online, should I read it? And most have said, don't read it to where you have a general reaction to what's happening on the TV screen. And then you can go back and compare it to what's in the book. So,
okay.
I want to do a reaction video, but I mean,
yeah,
we'll see how it goes.
That you do that then, because I don't.
Yeah,
I definitely have read Fire and Blood, and so I will not. I probably would not be the person to look for the reaction from. So, well, let's get to the chapter. So, Daenerys Targaryen wed Khal Drogo with fear and barbaric splendor in a field beyond the walls of Pentos. For the Dothraki believed that all things of importance in a man's life must be done beneath the open sky. So, that kind of reminds me of the northern marriages, the Stark marriages.
Yeah, that's not the only reference in this chapter that leads to connection with the northern.
Right.
But the thing is, though, I got it written down on that one. Yeah, they do it under the open sky, but what tradition were people showing whoever was watching? Who was watching to see all this major stuff?
Well, I mean, they believe their ancestors are the stars, right? So similar to the so that's actually another tie to the Northerners, right? So the trees have the spirits of ancestors of the North, and people are performing the marriages not only out in the open, but in the view of the trees.
Yeah.
While they're doing this in the view of the stars, right? So it's very similar in that regard. And if Dany is R plus L as we think she is, right? I think she's the third of triplets are R plus L triplets.
Yeah.
Then it would be intentionally tying her to the Stark marriages and potentially the marriage of Ned and Ashara, and perhaps another bigamy event with Lyanna and Rhaegar.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's I know it's referenced later on, especially when they're moving to Mace. I can't pronounce any of the Dothraki. Where they're going to, where the old wives are and everything. The Khalasar is like a plague of locusts.
Yeah.
40,000 riders plus women and children and animals and all that.
Yep.
I mean, good night. I mean, they probably have a strip at least a half a mile wide wherever they go, just getting destroyed.
Well, they talk about how the Pentos is getting a little nervous with them there, right?
Yeah, they're ready to for them to be gone.
The Khal had joined his Khalasar, his estate given over to Daenerys and her brother until the wedding. And Khal Drogo having his own mansion estate and almost needing to call his banners to assemble his Khalasar really makes him seem like kind of a Westerosi lord. Right.
Well, also, I don't know if it's ego or how the Khalasar see him, but the second he sent for them, he joined them and he dressed like them. He took off all the nice clothes that he had at the meeting ceremony where all the people from around the world were there. He was dressed differently.
Yeah.
But once the main body of the Khalasar came, he's like, okay, it's time to go back to the horse vest and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know.
And you have to wonder, like, is Illyrio the one that's always been his translator, or does he have some other translators? You know, how does he operate? How does he operate maintaining an estate and a manse in Pentos
Right,
as a
without speaking
Dothraki
any
horse
common.
lord?
Yeah.
It's really interesting. He's a strange character that you know, I'd really like to know a little more about his backstory and how he pulls this off.
Oh yeah. I think we're gonna either in wins, but probably spring. I think it might be wins. We're gonna find out a whole lot about Illyrio.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
There are no more dragons, Dany thought, staring at her brother, though she did not dare say it aloud. So I think it's interesting that Dany has already rejected Viserys claiming he's the dragon.
Right. Well, I mean, the same. I love you sending me the email so I can kind of look as you read along. But this is the first time she's treated above Varys. She's sitting up with Khal Drogo, his blood riders, and then Illyrio, Viserys, and Jorah. They're like the third seat down, and it's pissing him the hell off.
Yeah.
But this is the first time super respect has been given to her.
And it's so ridiculous considering he's the one that elevated her to this position, and he's in a position of honor. It's just not it's a freaking wedding. The bride is the focus.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely narcissistic. I think that's what the word is.
Yeah.
But you got to stop and think, man, all the moving around that they've done and the beggar king and all that stuff, I guarantee you he didn't act like this until he got to Illyrio's, and Illyrio's was basically falling down, kissing his feet, treating him like a king for 6 months. And then all I did was just swell that head bigger and bigger and bigger until he gets poured gold on it, of course. But yeah, I don't think 6 months ago, before they came to Illyrio's, I don't think he acted like a king. I think it was sneaky, and he definitely treated his sister bad, but he didn't have the "I'm the king" ego that he does right now.
Could be. Yet that night she dreamt of one. Viserys was hurting her. She was naked, clumsy with fear. She ran from him, but her body seemed thick and ungainly. He struck her again. She stumbled and fell. "You woke the dragon," he screamed as he kicked her. "You woke the dragon! You woke the dragon!" Her thighs were slick with blood. She closed her eyes and whimpered. As if in answer, there was a hideous ripping sound and the crackling of some great fire. When she looked again, Viserys was gone. Great columns of flame rose all around, and in the midst of them was the dragon. It turned its great head slowly. When its molten eyes found hers, she woke, shaking and covered with a fine sheen of sweat. Mm-hmm. She had never been so afraid.
At the beginning of that, when it's talking about her running naked, that image is back to where Tyrion was talking about the howling, running naked in front of a pack. I just get that skin changer vibe as soon as I read that.
Yeah, and I'm sure others have pointed this out. I can't remember who I first heard this from, but this is probably the first night that Dany slept near the eggs,
right? And
it literally woke the dragon. Right.
I've heard that too, but I'm trying to remember who I heard it from. That's the bad part about watching 20 different people's videos.
Yeah.
You tend to forget.
Yeah, I'd like to be able to credit the first person I heard it from, but anyway. We get the famous line, "A Dothraki wedding without at least 3 deaths is deemed a dull affair," he had said. Her wedding must have been especially blessed. Before the day was over, 12 men had died. And I think that's probably some Red Wedding foreshadowing, right? The idea that weddings are where people die.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
She was afraid of the Dothraki, whose ways seemed alien and monstrous, as if they were beasts in human skins and not true men at all. She was afraid of her brother, of what he might do if she failed him. Most of all, she was afraid of what would happen tonight under the stars, when her brother gave her up to the hulking giant who sat drinking beside her with a face as still and cruel as a bronze mask. So the beast in human skins definitely sounds like some sort of skin changing in reverse, right?
Oh yeah.
And
Well, I mean, there are those that think that a lot of the skin changing powers come from the actual animals, or they're just as strong a skin changer as the person they're bonded with. The dragons, the dire wolves. You've even mentioned it
yeah,
a couple of episodes ago.
right. And the Order of the Green Hand says that basically dragon binding seems to be skin changing in reverse, which kind of makes sense because the dragons are supposed to be smarter than humans. I think we hear it in some of the history books and things.
Well, it just seems like Drogon is always there when Dany needs him to be. So
Right.
they're saying, I remember the video. The Order of Green Hand on this one is pretty good.
Yep.
That he's looking through her eyes and knows when to come to her. I mean, he's gone. Nobody knows where he's at. Right. Then all of a sudden, she needs him, and boom, twice he's there.
Right. Humans don't see through dragons. Dragons see through humans.
Yeah. Oh, I got something else at the beginning of that. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
The wedding started at dawn, and is from dawn to dusk. So I'm wondering, is the dawn of the day, like in the religion of R'hllor, is that the reason this celebration, this wedding, lasts from dawn till dusk to celebrate the light? This is what popped in my head.
Yeah, maybe, and it's like that's the event that the Khalasar witnesses, right? And then after the sun sets, they go off to consummate the marriage, and that's the event that the stars witness.
Right. The only thing that was watching them is a Greenseer, maybe Blood Raven, future Bran. Somebody's up there actually watching what they're doing.
Their ancestors, right, is what they think. Right. But yeah, I mean, we know, we specifically get the line, you will learn to see well beyond the trees themselves with Bran, right? So we know that in fact the Greenseers can only see the tree out of the tree's eyes initially, but they're like a crutch. Eventually they can see everything. There's basically omniscience.
Right.
Oh yeah. She hugged herself to try to keep from shaking. So that's the second time we've got, well, maybe more than that, to be honest. Again, she was shaking a second ago, right? It was with the dream, she was shaking and never been so afraid, and now she's shaking again. And that, of course, reminds me of Catelyn's fear in Cat 2. It's interesting that she's specifically in Cat 2, she's of course telling us that she's never been afraid of Ned except that one time, and yet she's clearly afraid. And it's not of Robert, it's of Ned, right? It's because she's doing the same thing. She's doing things related to Jon and so forth, right?
Right.
Anyway,
well, that's not the only the instance that kind of bonds Dany with Cat. It's when Dany's looking at all the people that are there, the whole Khalasar. You get some of that same imagery in my head when Cat and Renly are on top of the holdfast. They're looking at all these people.
Yeah,
it's just some of the same
fear. Yeah, that makes sense. She definitely has fear of them and so forth, and fear and awe, kind of same vibe. So that's the other thing I meant to look up. Darn it, I meant to look up the Irri Jhiqui reintroduction in Dance with Dragons because it's so different from this one. So Irri and Jhiqui were copper-skinned Dothraki with black hair and almond-shaped eyes. Doreah, a fair-haired, blue-eyed Lysine girl. These are no common servants, sweet sister, her brother told her as they were brought forward one by one. Illyrio and I selected them personally for you. Irri will teach you riding, Jhiqui the Dothraki tongue, and Doreah will instruct you in the womanly arts of love. He smiled thinly. She's very good. Illyrio and I can both swear to that. And I just wrote poor Doreah. I mean, and not
as soon
just
as I
because
saw
she's
that,
dead.
I started laughing. That was pretty funny.
And not just because she's dead, right? But anyway, right. She later will have her hair, her hair will become brittle as she dies, and she'll die in the Red Waste. She's the one with the honey. She's one of the first people we meet with honey hair. Later on, it'll be mentioned that her hair is the color of honey. And that kind of ties honey hair to Dany and the Targaryens. While George makes Irri and Jhiqui sound identical here, he will later tell us Irri is skinny and flat, and Jhiqui is the opposite. Jeekly does almost all the teaching if you look carefully through. I searched through looking for their names and read everything.
I'll be out in a minute. Sorry.
No problem. I searched through looking at their names, and Jeekly does most of the teaching. Erie's the one that warms Dany's bed beyond the usual bed warmer.
Right.
And of course, Dorea is also teaching her sexually. So she's really, with the exception of in the bedroom, Jeekly does most of the real teaching. As we will eventually see that Erie doesn't really have to teach her how to ride. We'll see a little bit of that in this chapter, but she'll specifically tell us that she shares a single mind with her horse. Right?
Yeah. I want to go back for just a second. Like the second page in my book, back when they're talking about the Khalasar and everything. The horse lords might put on rich fabrics and sweet perfumes when they visit the free cities, but out under the open sky, they keep the old ways. And then we're also told that the reason the man who passes the sentence to swing the sword, Brand says, we follow the old way. So that's another.
Well, that also sounds like the Ironborn.
What's that?
Well, and their culture is very much like the Ironborn, right? The idea that you take, right? And so it really matches because they talk about the old ways as well, and that's for them is about taking.
Yeah.
Although one of the things that always bothered me about the Greyjoys is the Greyjoys do the whole, we do not sow, but that's like the opposite of the way the house before them. Anyway, the Harrenhal.
Harren.
I can't remember. Anyway.
Yeah, I can't either.
Anyway, the point being that Harren was definitely taking land, and he had conquered two of the 9 realms, two of the 9
kingdoms,
named areas, basically named regions. This is a gift worthy of a great warrior, O blood of my blood, and I am but a woman. Let my lord husband bear these in my stead. And so Khal Drogo too received his bride gifts. So making Dany say I am but a woman just seems somewhat ridiculous, but of course I maintain this whole story is about patriarchy and the erasure of female equality with the erasing of Asherah as the Dione. So it's intentional, right? It's intentional that he's writing about the dispossession of the female.
Yeah.
We got she was only a fair rider. She had spent far more time traveling by ship and wagon and palanquin than by horseback. So she thinks,
go ahead.
She thinks she's only fair, but it's specifically because she doesn't do it much, right?
Right. I think the first time she ever got to actually ride horses was when they got to Illyrio's, because Viserys tells her to wash the stables off of her. I'm thinking that this is the ever since they left the House of the Red Door, Ilios is the nicest place that they've been to, with the most freedoms for them to do stuff, especially Dany. I think before this, she's been held down, not be able to enjoy much of life, didn't get to understand a lot of things that other people do in this world. So I'll shut up.
No, that's absolutely right. I mean, I think the point is just that she hasn't done much riding, not that she's really judging her riding ability, right? So she hasn't done enough of it to be able to judge her riding ability. So the silver gray filly moved with a smooth and silken gait, and the crowd parted for her, every eye upon them. Dany found herself moving faster than she had intended, yet somehow it was exciting rather than terrifying. The horse broke into a trot, and she smiled. Dothraki scrambled to clear a path. The slightest pressure with her legs, the lightest touch on the reins, and the filly responded. She sent it into a gallop, and now the Dothraki were hooting and laughing and shouting at her as they jumped out of her way. As she turned to ride back, a fire pit loomed ahead, directly in her path. They were hemmed in on either side with no room to stop. A daring she had never known filled Daenerys then, and she gave the filly her head. The silver horse leapt the flames as if she had wings. When she pulled up before Magister Illyrio, she said, Tell Khal Drogo that he has given me the wind. The fat Pentoshi stroked his yellow beard as he repeated her words in Dothraki, and Dany saw her new husband smile for the first time.
I love that paragraph.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It's so clear that she's almost superhuman in her riding ability with this horse,
Yeah.
um, and that that definitely ties her to Lyanna. It becomes even more obvious, in the later chapter when we get the whole shared a single mind. Line.
Well, I mean, like John with Ghost, the immediate connection that they bond that they felt, you see some of that with this horse.
Yeah.
Because the second it was brought to her, chances are she just fell in love with that horse, the beauty of that horse. And then I know the slightest touch, leg pressure, and all the reins. Is that Dothraki horse training, or is it that you don't have to do much because you and the horse got kind of one mind?
Sure feels like her intentions are known by the horse, right?
Yeah.
I am the blood of the dragon, she whispered aloud as she followed, trying to keep her courage up. I am the blood of the dragon. I am the blood of the dragon. The dragon was never afraid. And so this is just sort of one of her mantras, and I just thought it was worth noting. And
yeah.
And then finally, I went ahead and commented on the whole consent thing, right? No, he said, and she knew it was a question. And Dany specifically says yes, but I don't know that verbal consent from a 13-year-old is worth much to us in this day and age.
Yeah, I didn't write any. Like I said, I don't. There's certain scenes in the book that I just won't go to, so I didn't write anything about that ceremony.
Right. It's certainly reality. It certainly it's reality in the United States today. There's a lot of states that still allow child brides.
Yeah.
So it's reality in the modern world. It was reality then. George doesn't pull punches. He tells it like it is. But that doesn't mean that we have to be comfortable with it.
Right. I mean, you don't have to frame this chapter or those pages and say this is the greatest thing ever. I love it. I love it. I mean, if you dwell on it and love that part of this chapter, then I kind of worry about your yeah. I mean, if the chapter doesn't bug you, then there might be a problem with you. But I agree. George, he pulled it from the England's past and other cultures past. I mean, like he made this stuff up.
Right.
Now, the situations that he puts them through with the dragons and all that stuff is made up.
Sure.
But the core of all the books is our history, without a doubt. Right.
So, want me to briefly talk about your theories?
Go ahead.
So I was saying that I really don't like. I do like the idea that Varys he knows. I think at one point we're told he knows all the conjurer's tricks, and in these types of stories where somebody hates a certain weapon or something, and they know the weapon well, they tend to use it. That's the way most of these stories work. Is these people tend to be a little bit hypocritical. So it's probably true that Varys does glamour. The way he describes his disguise with Tyrion, it sure seems like it's glamour, right?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, saying that you hate something, you can't stand something, then you're distancing yourself from that. So people won't automatically assume, well, okay, if he hates magic, then there's no magic involved with this man type situation. But there's definitely something going on with Varys.
Yeah, it's unlikely that he learned all the conjurer's tricks and that he doesn't actually use them, even as he hates magic.
Yeah. So I know we keep talking about Order of Greenhand, but Order of Greenhand points out how pissed off Varys gets when Shay recognizes him. Right. And then after Shay recognizes him and calls him Lord Varys, then I'll be out in a minute, buddy. I'm almost done. Huh? I'm doing a video. It's live. Then you want to say hey? It's my 7-year-old. You got He-Man and Orca. I'll be out in just a minute, okay?
I remember He-Man toys.
Well, you can sit here. They got out early. This is his last day. I don't even remember what we were talking about. Oh yeah.
We were talking about Varys and Order of Greenhand.
Yeah, he definitely has some magic to him for sure. So, when I started this theory, I messed up big time because yesterday I had my daughter and me when we were waiting to pick this guy up, putting little sticky notes on all the chapters of the two books after Varys disappears from when he lets Tyrion out and all that stuff. So I got to, instead of typing in on word search for or Pycelle or Grand Maester, or I mean, there's so many different ways they talk about Grand Maester Pycelle that just typing in Pycelle, you don't get it all.
Sure.
So I'm having to go back and I'm like, well, what if it wasn't Pycelle? Is there anybody else in there that is just at every turn sabotaging what's going on? So I got it marked down with the names and everything. I have to read every chapter.
But Pycelle's not. He's the only one that's trying to prevent Cersei from blowing things up.
That's
He's
nice.
he's the only one that's giving her good advice the whole time.
Yeah, that's what I found when I looked. I did the word search, and I'm like, okay, that's good advice. That's good. Well, okay, maybe my theory is crud. So,
right.
Yeah,
no, Pycelle's actually, and not only that, but he actually he specifically describes all the things you have to do to take care of the body, right? He's like, no, we did this and we did this and we did this and we did that, right? So he actually does know how to take care of the body. But I do like the fact that Varys knows glamour and he's probably around somewhere, so it's worth trying to figure out where that might be, right?
Yeah, he definitely didn't sit in the dungeons the whole time. I mean,
he's probably a nobody because he's probably not trying to attract attention. So he's probably like just some guard sitting around or something, right? But still, it's something to keep your eye open for. Like he's got to be somewhere. So I do like it from that perspective. And as I was mentioning to you, I need to go back and read Toodles on the Arthur Dane and Corrin Halfhand and so forth, because he talked about the language of and how it implies that the Kingsguard are still alive. And I want to look at that because I think he talks about the number of people who died, and I think it implies that most of Ned's men are dead. But I'm not positive on that, but it's probably worth going back and looking.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is when you got Ned telling the people that are coming, he leaves Lord Dustin last, but between Howland Reed and Lord Dustin is a semicolon or whatever, it's a dot and then a comma at the bottom. It just separates that person from the rest of the people that they're talking about. I see, buddy. I'm almost done. But it wasn't. I mean, Varys wasn't.
I have to go back and look. So, but I think there was something about it. So I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the idea that. Well, it's pretty clear that Tormund is not what he appears, right? He specifically tells you he doesn't know how to read, and then like 2 paragraphs later he tells you he knows how to write, and then he knows what maesters are. He knows what kind of quills they use. He knows what kind of ink they use. He knows, right? I mean, and that's part of why the Order of the Green Hand's like, well, that sure sounds like he's from Old Town or something, right? Because he knows a lot about south of the Wall that he shouldn't know. Not the least of which. I mean,
everything that they say that helps him lean toward the Lord Commander Hightower can still be applied to Lord Dustin almost as easily because he was the Lord. And knowing Maester stuff, and now all of a sudden in Borrow Time there is no Maester.
Right. It's not like he's supposed to be a former. It's not like anybody thinks he's a former Maester.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. He's Wallace. That's who he is.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I mean, regardless of who he is, whether it's the Lord Commander or Lord Dustin, I believe he was sent north of the Wall to rally the people and become the king beyond the Wall. He just couldn't get it done, and that's why Mance Rayder had to take over and bring the North under one sword. So.
Yeah, I don't think he's Wallace. As I've said, I think Wallace should be with Aegon, and so the Half-Maester really has to be Wallace. But actually, once I said that, I was like, Wallace. That's the only disappearing Maester we know.
Yeah, I don't think I do.
No, I don't think so either.
Well, I've got a couple of crows or ravens sitting on his shoulder, maybe.
Yeah. Anyway, it sounds like your family, or at least your son, is anxious for you to go. So.
He had an ice cream party today, and my wife they brought him home early. But next chapter is Eddard.
Yeah, it's his second chapter, and I think who was it? Was it might have been Girls Gone Canon. It might have been maybe it was not a cast, but somebody has pointed out that his first 2 chapters with Eddard. This is the second chapter. Robert is in a hurry to go see Graves.
Oh, it's something I wrote down when you said Robert. The way the Dothraki party, Robert Baratheon would love to be at that wedding. As much as he hates Targaryens and once they're gone,
yeah,
he would fit right in sitting there drinking. He would party with these people hard. Yes, buddy, I see it. That's Thor.
But Robert is definitely in a hurry to drag Ned into a graveyard. Both of the first 2 chapters.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's responsible. Well, just as responsible as Eddard is for Eddard's demise.
Yeah, he does to kind of drag him to his death. Drag him to his death.
Well, they should have listened to the signs when the dire wolf had the antler stuck in his throat.
Yep.
But all right, when's the next day you think you can do it?
Probably Monday. I'll double check my schedule, but I know I have a conflict tomorrow, but I think Monday will probably work.
Tomorrow I'll probably just do a short theory video, and then I'll get it with you on Mondays.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks again to the co-host Richard York, Char's trueborn son. I'm older dude. Little man was little man. He loves doing videos. I can put that camera on. He'll sit here for an hour talking, even though I'm not recording. But all right. Well, it's been Older Dudes Theories, Temple of Game of Thrones. And we will see. I'll see you tomorrow with a theory, and then hopefully we'll see Richard, which is the brains of the operation, on Monday. So y'all take care. If you don't watch tomorrow, have a nice weekend. Bye.
Have a good one.
You're so funny, but.